You are listening to the CittaCalcioUsa show, the only news and podcast in English about AS Cittadella. Hello everyone, welcome back to the CittaCalcioUsa show, episode number 143, coming to you on Thursday, October 3rd. Cittadella, in 1 week, losing a total of 9 points following 2 losses and 1 court decision going the wrong way. There's another international break coming up, and that is quickly approaching as the Granata look forward to their next match, last match before this international break against Sassuolo this upcoming Saturday. So lots to talk about, lots to break down in this episode. We are back from a little bit of a pause from last week, but now we're back into the swing of things with the podcast. So let's get into it. Before we start, don't forget to follow us on Instagram and Twitter at CittaCalcioUsa and visit our website at CittaCalcioUsa.com for more information, news, articles, all that stuff about AS Cittadella. You won't want to miss it, so please check it out, CittaCalcioUsa.com. Now, let's dive in. Before I dive in, I want to quickly just apologize real quick for not uploading a podcast last week. It was a bit of a busy week on part of my end. On top of Cittadella playing on Friday, I couldn't really get a podcast out in time. There was time on, I think it was Thursday, but having that podcast previewing the Frosinone match that ended on Friday, I don't think it would have been made enough sense, because by the time most people would listen to it, the game would have been over by then. So that's why I held it off from then. But looking back on these last 2 weeks from the last podcast, which was in September, Cittadella, quite a disastrous week, last 7 days for them, as they first lose in Mantova 1-0, thanks to a very late goal from Mancosu, who scored in the 93rd minute, I believe, or was it 94th? I'm going to go check real quick. Yes, 94th minute from Mancosu, the substitute, Leonardo Mancosu, scoring the goal to give Mantova the win. Then, just about 3 days later on Wednesday, that following Wednesday, was the Court of Appeals decision by the Court of Appeals decision from the Pisa situation, and it initially it overturned the initial result of what the sporting judge said regarding the Cittadella Pisa result. So in that case, it awarded Pisa a 3-0 victory at Avellino, forfeited win for Pisani, for the Pisani in that case. And so that's basically 2 losses in just a span of a few days. And then 2 days later, looking for a response, Cittadella lose to Frosinone, who had not won a single game this season, but they did get that win at the Tombolato last weekend, a 2-1 victory there. So really a disaster week for Cittadella that's seen a lot of negativity, a lot of anger among the Cittadella fan base, from the Mantova game to the court case to the Frosinone game. This puts Cittadella now in the relegation zone, entering this upcoming game against much improved, I'd say. Sassuolo side is playing much better than a little bit of a slow start there. But Cittadella is currently in 17th place as we speak, 7 points, even though they have 2 wins, 2 wins, 2 draws, and 3 losses on paper, or on the field. That's what it really was. But if you can't count that draw against Pisa anymore, which means Cittadella, technically on paper, have 4 losses, which means they have 7 points, only 3 points from bottom place Carrarese in 20th. So not looking great for Cittadella, if we are being very real from here. If we are being, if we take a look at this from another perspective, this is definitely not a good situation to be in. I said on Speaking Serie B, which is our new program in English, please go check it out. I do with Elia, who's a Spezia fan. We were talking about the upcoming games, and this was right after the court case came out, and it ruled that Cittadella did in fact lose the game 3-0, forfeited. I wanted to see a response from Cittadella, and given that it was a Friday game, it was just a few hours, merely 48 hours after that court case came out, which took away that Pisa result. I really wanted to see a response from the Granata. They were at home, they were playing against a struggling Frosinone side who were bottom of Serie B at that time, and considering what I thought to be a really poor display in Mantova, where they lost 1-0, I really wanted to see that real response and real fire in that eyes. Unfortunately, I did not see that. I did not see that in the Cittadella's players. In the first half, I'd say really into the entire game, I will say it was a little bit better than the Mantova game, just in my opinion, at least in the attacking third. They at least got a little bit more looks than they did in Mantova. However, still not good enough. There were still not good opportunities for the strikers, Ravasio and Pandolfi, who started up front. And still, Cittadella's attacking, how would I say this? The threat is really not that existent for Cittadella at this moment. Claudio Cassano getting the goal to make it a little bit of interesting in the last 20 minutes. I think in the last 10, 15 minutes, you did see Cittadella start to apply the pressure on Frosinone, and that was probably their best spell of the game. And really trying to break down the defense, it was really, really difficult. If you look at the stats from the game, 4 shots on target for Cittadella, 5 on target for Frosinone. They outshot Cittadella 18-11. Well, that's 4 shots more than what Cittadella had in Mantova, so I will give them that. But still, it was not good. And Gorini said after the game in his press conference that it was definitely a week to forget, just given how many things went against Cittadella in this case. I said this was going to be an important game, probably the most important game of the season so far, because if you had lost the game, you would have been closer to the relegation. You would have given Frosinone a boost. You would have not, you would have lost 9 points in this game, in this week, and that's what Cittadella did. And that was the worst case scenario going into this game against Sassuolo, a much better team than Frosinone and a much better, squad strength that they have going into the international break, which I think is going to be much, much needed for this team. This Frosinone game, it did extend Cittadella's home streak without a win. That is now 11 games without a victory at the Tombolato. Only 1 home win in 2024. It is now the unwanted record for Cittadella, as they are now. It's the longest home streak in club history without a win now. We went back in the records on Transfer Market, going all the way back to 1989. For all the home matches, I try to find any streak that was longer than 11 games or 10 games, and I could not find anything longer than 11. The longest I could have found was in 2008, where Cittadella kind of had a bit of a slump towards the end of the 07-08 season, where they got promoted to Serie B, and then they started the season at home in Serie B really, really poorly. And that was 10 games under Foscorini. This is now 11, and Cittadella still has yet to get a victory since that Palermo game was actually the first game of 2024, and since then they have not been able to get a home win since. It's really been a year to forget for Cittadella. Only 4 wins in total in 2024. I'm not sure what cursed them. I'm not sure what they must have did after that Palermo game on January 13th. But certainly something happened, and I don't know if it was the 8-game losing streak. I don't know if, it was just a turn of something. It's just really been a year to forget, and I think they would be very, very happy just to end the year right now and to start in 2025 as it stands. But there are still some home games remaining, and we'll see if Cittadella, I think they're going to get a home win before this year ends. Surely they have, let's see, I'm going to count. They still have Cosenza at home, Sampdoria, going down a little bit. I don't know why this schedule kind of glitched out there. But yes, they have Cosenza, Sampdoria, Cesena, Juve Stabia, Cremonese, Reggiana, and Palermo. It would be very funny if they won against Palermo for the first time since they beat Palermo at the start of the year. That would cap off the year very, very fittingly, I'd say, for Cittadella. But anyway, moving on a little bit to the points per round. Now, as you know, I keep track of all these stats, and one of them is the points per match day. Now, this year, I think is going to be a little bit of it's not going to be perfect because we are taking in consideration that court results. So it goes from 0 to 3 to 4 to 7 to 8 to 8 back to 7. You don't really see that often, and in theory, and in a perfect world, we would really just want this to be a perfect linear line. However, that's not the case, and this could possibly subject to change because Cittadella are planning to appeal to the CONI court, which is the next level of courts. It's a very, very long story. Even I am getting confused in it, but 7 points from 6 games, or from 7 games. That is currently, in theory, on paper, it should be 8 points, but like we just said, it's 7 right now. That is currently the worst under Guarini's era. That is 2 points worse than what they had last season, and 1 point worse than they had in the season, the 2022-2023 season, where they nearly got relegated at the end. I know it's only 1-2 points difference. It's still very early in the season. It's still kind of early to predict where this team is going to finish. But 7 points from 7 games, it's not ideal considering the last time they were on this level of points after this amount of games was the 2014-2015 season, which, as you know, they were relegated in that season. So let's see what happens. It's still a long season. I don't think there should be any real panic right now. I definitely think there's a little bit of concern just given how the team has been playing, and I think a lot of fans are definitely getting a bit agitated with just Guarini's way of style, the how the team has really been playing, not just this season, but in the last 3 years. It's definitely understandable from those fan perspective. However, I still think it is still too early to tell, because if they do win next or this upcoming Saturday against Sassuolo, that will put them at 10 points, and just like that, they are right back in the real middle of what their mean kind of average was during all these years in Serie B. So I still think there's a long road to go, but it's definitely I would like for them to win a few home games just to kind of get that belief going back together again. But we will see what happens on that. Moving on to the Serie B match day, there was a few results that we went over, especially in our Speaking Serie B episode, so please go check that out once again. But like we said, Cittadella losing against Frosinone 2-1. Then it was Bari hosting Cosenza. That was a 1-1 draw. Carrarese Reggiana 0-0. Another 0-0 game was Sassuolo against Spezia. Then Cesena won 4-2 big time at home against Mantova 4-2. Juve Stabia getting a win against Pisa. That was Pisa's first loss of the season away at Juve Stabia 2-0. Sampdoria getting a big win on the road in Modena 3-1. Another 0-0 goalless draw between Salernitana and Catanzaro at the Stadio Orecchi. Then the Monday games, you had Palermo traveling away to Südtirol, a long road trip for them. That ended in a 3-1 victory for Palermo. And then the final game of this match day, it was on Monday night, Brescia hosting Cremonese. Brescia getting out to a 3-0 lead at halftime before Cremonese kind of made it interesting at the end, but that ended up as a 3-2 victory for Brescia. As we look at the table, Pisa still in first place. Even though they did lose, they don't really lose much ground on second place Spezia. Still only about 3 points between them and Spezia. However, if you consider Pisa should really be on 14 points if you exclude that court case going for them. But second place, yes, you have Spezia, so well done to Elia for his team. A much improved season so far. You got Brescia up there. You got fourth place Sassuolo on 12 points, whose next opponent is Cittadella. Cesena, Juve Stabia is still very much improving. 11 points for each of them. Palermo, I think, are starting to improve now. They're up to 11 points. Cremonese, I still think we're still yet to see them get it out of that second gear. And because they still have 10 points, 8th place, I still expect them to climb up there as well. But moving towards the bottom, you got 20th place Carrarese, 4 points, 19th Cosenza with 5 points, 18th place Frosinone, 6 points, Cittadella 17th with 7, as well as Catanzaro on 7 points. And then above them was Salernitana, 15th, and Sampdoria, 14th, as well as Modena, 13th, all on 8 points. Remember, Cosenza still has that 4-point deduction because of their financial issues. So really, they should be on 8 points, as well as Modena, Sampdoria, and Salernitana. But for now, they are still stuck on 5 points in 19th place. Cittadella just 1 point above the automatic relegation drop after 7 games, after that loss against Frosinone. So let's get ready for this upcoming game against Sassuolo coming to you on Saturday. Let me just pull it up. I don't know why Liga B's website is acting weird, but here we go. Saturday, October 5th at 3 p.m. local time. That is 8 a.m. Eastern time here in the United States at the Mape Stadium. This is, as you know, the second meeting this season at the Mape Stadium between Cittadella and Sassuolo. These two teams meeting earlier in the Coppa Italia, which finished as a 2-1 win for Sassuolo. A bit hard to judge that match, considering it was so early in the season. It was a Coppa Italia game. First week of August, two teams really trying to regain fitness from the summer. For me, it was just one really big official friendly, I put it that way, because there was not many fans in the stadium. There was not many, things going on. And still, the team is still relatively unchanged, but there were still some key notice absences, including Enrico Baldini, who scored the goal for Cittadella in that game. But for Sassuolo, there is still very good side. We were talking this season about them being possibly the front runners for the 1 and 2 spots that goes up to Serie A directly, or possibly a playoff spot, and that's what they're showing currently right now. That is 12 points on 4th place, just 1 point behind second place Spezia, who sit with 13 points. And it's still, I sound like a broken record, but it's still very early in the season, but Sassuolo still has shown why they are one of the favorites in the Serie B, getting wins pretty big, I'd say. I don't know if I would say huge wins against a very difficult opponent, but they are getting the job done. They got wins against Cesena, Carrarese, Cosenza, and then in the Coppa Italia, just recently defeating Serie A side Lecce 2-0 in Lecce. So very difficult game for them. They've gotten draws against Catanzaro, Bari, and Spezia. Spezia being the latest opponent for Sassuolo in that game. And Elia, our good friend Elia, who was once again on the Speaking Serie B show, we were talking about the game. He did say, even though it was a 0-0 game, he did think that Spezia did have many opportunities to take the lead, and that just wasn't able to get that final moment of quality for both sides. I think he said, Sassuolo still is a good team, and they've definitely had their opportunities. But if you look at Sassuolo's recent form, they had 3 straight away games, all in really 1 week, in about 10 days, actually. They had a road trip to Carrarese, in Pisa, where Carrarese were hosting their games until their stadium is being redone. So they had to go to Pisa. Then the following week, they had to go to Cosenza, so long trip down south. And then they ended up in the Coppa Italia against Lecce, so staying in the south, moving to kind of the heel of Italy to play Lecce. And in those 3 games, they all got 3 wins. They did not concede a single goal, and they scored 5 goals. Their only loss this season came against Cremonese, which was a 4-1 defeat at home. So I expect this is going to be a very difficult challenge for Cittadella. Definitely not the type of challenge I think they want, considering they really just need a good performance, a good result going into this October international break. And when you're playing one of these tough opponents, it always makes it more difficult. But I think if on the other side of this, you could also say that this might be the best opportunity for Cittadella, because we said there had to be a response last week against Frosinone, who had not won a game and had been struggling, and they ended up losing that game. So maybe they just need a difficult opponent to play to kind of play up to the Sassuolo standards, which I think Cittadella could play much, much better in that way of mindset, in that kind of way of playing, instead of kind of being the favorite to win, kind of expected to win in this case. A little bit of stats in this game: 5 wins, 7 draws, 6 losses all time against Sassuolo. Once again, this last loss coming in August in the Coppa Italia. Interesting to note that Castrati could be back for this game. I don't know if he will, but I was reading reports that he was saying he's getting back into the groove of things. Maniero has been great, though. You have to say Maniero has been really, really solid since Castrati has been away. I think it's a little unfortunate for Maniero to be, kind of going back to that secondary role as the goalkeeper, but he is really, really good, and he's always there when Cittadella need him the most, when he needs to step up in place of Castrati for whatever reason that might be. So I'm sure we'll get to see Maniero possibly more this season. However, if Castrati is healthy, if he is available, I think it is worth a try putting him back out there and seeing what he has left in the tank. However, what is really needed for Cittadella, as I start to end this podcast, is a good performance. They need a good performance going into this October international break, because after this game, they're going to have 2 weeks to kind of digest what has happened in September since the last international break. They have, after that international break, they've drawn 1 game. That was against Catanzaro. They've lost 2 games, and really 3 games if you include that court decision going against their favor. So they really need a strong performance, kind of putting that belief in the team, and not only the team, the coaching staff, but also the fans, because the last thing they want is going into this break having 2 weeks of kind of lingering doubt, of 3 straight losses, kind of in that mind. Not good for the rest of the season, the kind of mindset they want going forward. And they just want just give a reason for the fans to believe that they could really survive for another season in Serie B. And the next season would be 10 straight seasons in Serie B, which is a remarkable achievement for this club. So that's kind of my how I see this game against Sassuolo. If they do lose the game, then they lose the game. But if they do show that they are in it, they are in the, kind of spirited attitude that they have been lacking for a few games now, I think that would go a really long way, because, losing to Sassuolo against a difficult team away at Mappe Stadium, it's, it happens, and I wouldn't be surprised if that happens. However, they just need a good, solid performance, kind of like what they did in Como in May. If you remember a few months ago, where Cittadella traveled to Como, who were on the brink of Serie A promotion. There was about 3 games left. Cittadella really needed a win to put themselves back in the playoff picture. Como needed to win to get that second place spot. And even though Cittadella did lose that game 2-1 in the final minute, they did show a really, really good game. And that was probably the best they showed in 2024 as of right now. Just the way they were playing, Pitarello scoring in that game. They had numerous chances, really should have won that game. However, just given that performance, I think they need something similar like that in Sassuolo on Saturday. But just a little bit of a moving forward, after the international break. I mentioned this in the Speaking Serie B episode, so please, once again, go check that out. I mentioned this, that after the international break, after the Sassuolo game, is 2 very winnable games, in my opinion. That is at home against Cosenza, away against Carrarese. Now, we've been saying that home is not a place where Cittadella has performed well this year in 2024. However, against Cosenza, I think you're looking at that game where that could be the game where things start to change. I think very winnable game, even though Cosenza, I think, are a lot better than what the standings really tell you. I think that is definitely a winnable game. I don't know why I'm getting my words mixed up right now. But then the game after that, the weekend following, is away against Carrarese. Carrarese should move into their home. They're really home in Carrara at the Stadio dei Marmi. So they shouldn't be playing in Pisa anymore. So definitely that's something to look at. That's an interesting dynamic because Carrarese is kind of back in their home. I believe they were going to have one game before that, so it isn't the grand opening of their stadium. I believe they play Reggiana the week before. But Carrarese away, definitely against a team that is struggling. 1 win, 1 draw, and 5 losses, currently sitting bottom of Serie B. I think that's definitely a winnable game. So definitely, I think a good performance is needed in the Sassuolo game, regardless of the result. Get to the international break just to kind of reset, restore the mind a little bit, get players healthy again, and then go forward from there, and let's see what happens in that future. So with that, I'm going to end it here. Sassuolo taking on Cittadella Saturday, October 5th at 9 a.m. Eastern Time. That's 3 p.m. local time at Mappe Stadium. Second game this season between Cittadella and Sassuolo. First time in Serie B this season. The second of 3 games between Cittadella and Sassuolo this season. That's coming to you on Saturday. We will be back next week recapping the game and previewing the international break. For me, that's going to be it. Please follow us on Instagram, Twitter, YouTube at CittaCalcioUsa, and visit our website at CittaCalcioUsa.com for more information, news, articles, all that stuff at CittaCalcioUsa.com. And I will see you next week. Thank you for listening. I will see you once again next week. And as always, Forza Citta. Thank you for listening to the CittaCalcioUsa show. If you liked it, please share and follow us on Instagram and Twitter at CittaCalcioUsa. See you next time, and remember, Forza Citta.